Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of these Saturday live interviews. These are kind of cool. I'm really having a lot of fun, but I want to do something kind of different to the norm. Normally, we're just like interviewing people who are in the community and doing crazy good stuff. But I wanted to actually talk to the National Autistic Society today because we've had a lot of, I've had a lot of questions about, what do they do, who are they, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to invite Tom onto the show today because it was a way for me to get you the best answers possible by actually getting them to be on the show. So, Tom, do you want to explain a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Dan. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. Love the Aspie world. Love your videos and your
Thank you.
podcasts. So it's great to finally be on one. I'm Tom. I'm currently head of marketing and campaigns at the National Autistic Society. But to be honest, it doesn't really say a lot about what I do and what the charity does. The charity has existed since 1962, so we're years. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
We started the first autism specific school in the UK, in the world. In fact. Lots of firsts over those 60 years, but what we are today is a charity. We're the UK's largest autism charity, and we're here to try and create a society that works for autistic people. That's the long and the short of it, really. We are here to try and make changes, provide support, change people's lives, and try and make sure that we are forever creating a better society and world for autistic people and their families.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's it's surprising. I didn't know it'd been around that long. I mean, that's a long time. And yeah, obviously, you have a lot to show for it because so many people are in support of the National Autistic Society. And yeah, there are a few autism charities in the UK that I know of, but none are as prominent, I guess, as National Autistic Society. So yeah, that was really interesting. So kind of, I wanted to give you kind of an opportunity to really explain, what are some of the goals of the National Autistic Society? For people who don't know anything about what you guys do from a day-to-day basis, what are some of the goals that you guys are trying to do?
So we want to be here for all the 700,000 autistic people in the UK. So that might mean that if you're an autistic person, you need some help and support. That might mean via our website. So it's about 5 million unique visitors every year, and that's from all over the world, looking for information, guidance, whether that's about how to get a diagnosis, about how they can get social care in their local area, about all sorts of issues, specific topics of guidance like mental health, the things that we know really matter to autistic people. But then through the website, we've also got our online community. That's a moderated community of peer support. And then alongside it, we run some casework, really important casework services. So they're services that pick up on sort of really specific issues, whether that's education rights, whether it's for people who are in or at risk of going into mental health hospitals, specific casework service for them. Lots of really valuable specific expert guidance that can be accessed by them, and not just via the phone. They're accessible via email and through our website as well. I should mention the website autism.org.uk if people haven't ever seen it and want to check it out. But then we also have our network of branches. So we have 117 volunteer-led branches across the UK. And they, being perfectly honest, they started off principally led by parents of autistic people, and
Mhm.
they are still, predominantly parents of autistic children that run our branches. But increasingly, we're seeing autistic people, key volunteers as part of what they do. That actually we're seeing autistic only groups and branches being developed, and pretty much all of our branches will offer some form of support just for autistic adults. So whether that's a social group, whether it's a little kind of community locally, whether it's just information, but they are there for autistic adults in many communities right across the country, 117 different branches. And then there's our really important policy and campaigns work. So part of that being trying to create a society that works for autistic people is about trying to change the world, trying to change the law, trying to influence government. So, most recently that's been during COVID. That's been about trying to really highlight through our stranded report and campaign what government haven't done to make sure autistic people have been supported properly during the pandemic and during lockdown. And we're still working on that. That's an ongoing challenge. We know that autistic people aren't getting the help that they need and deserve during lockdown. So that's a big priority for us still. But we haven't just been doing COVID related stuff. We had some massive news last week when the government announced that they're reforming the Mental Health Act, which obviously covers much beyond autism, but but within the Mental Health Act, what it used to say, or what it currently says, and what the government have now committed to changing, is it used to have autism within the definition of mental disorder, and that was used as the basis for a lot of very inappropriate incidences of people being sectioned, autistic people being sectioned, and then ending up in inpatient mental health hospitals for a very long time. So the government have said that they are changing that in a really important way. So we've been really, really pleased about that. And very kind of you to say that the charity is well supported, and we're really lucky to have a really passionate, supportive base of campaigners across the country who help us, whether that's putting their names on letters or signing petitions, doing stuff online, or doing stuff in person and engaging with their MPs. And it was only really thanks to all the people who've supported that campaign that we've been able to convince the government to change that. So really grateful to all the thousands of people that have lent us their names during that work.
Yeah, I saw that campaign actually, and I think because a lot of the work you do is really important in terms of like government legislation and stuff. And I think, you're up against a difficult one because we haven't got the most charismatic government. I'll put it that way. Definitely not somebody that I voted for, and so I think it is a battle to kind of get government changes, and this is kind of one of the things I want to do with the Aspie World and stuff. Is I wanted to have like a basis. We got 145,000 people that subscribe to this channel on YouTube and 150,000 listeners now on the podcast. So we've got a bit more of a momentum to kind of trying to get behind things like this. And one of the things I found really interesting. Now, there's two things. One is that I remember there was a guy called, I'm sure his name was Gary McGuinness, I think his name was. He was a hacker.
Gary
McKinnon, that was
Gary
it.
Yeah,
yeah. He hacked a NASA. He had a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, I think, and he hacked some NASA computers because it was like one of his obsessions, right? Find about aliens and stuff. And I only know about this guy because I was really interested in the same stuff. Okay, I didn't go to the lens of hacking anything, but I was definitely interested in the same things. And I remember vividly seeing the National Autistic Society members on the news holding up kind of like a thing saying they're not going to extradite him to America, and it was kind of an achievement because it pressured the government and the courts to say, it's not fair. This guy will have variant issues if you do those proceedings. You have to find some other way, some ethical way of dealing with the issue. That he'd broken the law, and I think that was just fantastic. That really kind of like whoa. And I recently saw something about Julian Assange, very similar, where Julian Assange, obviously been under a lot of criticism and a lot of controversy around the guy, and I believe the guy is just telling the truth. I mean, what's wrong with that, right? But also, I think he was just diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome as well. He had a clinical psychologist kind of go through that, and they did the similar process where the government kind of said, okay, we're not going to extradite him because he would have been under those same kind of issues, and mental health crisis and mania would have set in if he would have been extradited to America. So I think it's very important that there's organizations like the National Autistic Society doing those things to protect people who are most vulnerable in situations that are very controversial. So I just wanted to say, like, I was aware of those things, and I think that's excellent. Yeah, it
Great.
really is good.
Yeah,
So,
and
sorry,
what we always have to what we have to kind of balance is that we know that there are a lot of autistic people out there who have poor experiences, and you know, you've mentioned a couple there, and they're obviously quite extreme examples, but we know that there are, on a day-to-day basis, that there are, you know, thousands of autistic people who are struggling, who aren't getting the support they need, who are, you know, having a difficult time, and we really have to balance making, you know, backing campaigns that are driven by an individual, that are about an individual's circumstances, but that
mm,
if you kind of win them, it only makes a difference for them,
yeah,
against trying to do work where we're looking to make, you know, structural changes to the system so that
mm,
all autistic people can benefit for that.
benefit.
And we have to be you know, we're a charity. We have to be really careful and really think about how we use the limited resource we have so that we're getting, you know, as big an impact for as many people as possible in the campaigns that we take on.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's there's so many people who have like you said, so many issues, and you're having to try and set a standard almost to show that you can have societal change on a bigger scale. But it takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of time, I guess, because it's not an easy thing to do. So it is.
Yeah.
I think it's good. And one of the things I do every year is I fundraise on this channel, and I donate money to the National Autistic Society because I think it's a good cause, and I think there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think we all need to play our bit. So kind of, do you want to? I would like to ask you really, what are some of the biggest achievements that NAS has? And when I say NAS, guys, I'm just shortening NAS. I'm just NAS as the National Autistic Society. So what are the biggest achievements you guys have seen over the past, say, 10 years?
So I suppose just before I answer directly, like thinking about the last 10 years and thinking about what we've achieved, it's helpful to think about what things looked like in 2009. And I just slightly more than 10 years ago, but 2009 was when the Autism Act passed. And just before that, we ran a campaign that was called I Exist. Now, this is slightly just a little bit before my time at the charity, but it was called I Exist. And the point of the campaign was basically about saying autistic adults exist and the government needs to do something about them. Now, for me, the fact that we even called a campaign back then, I Exist, shows how much things have changed. And I know there are still people out there who think autism is only something which which children are autistic, and autistic adults is still a bit of a mystery to some people who don't really understand. But I think that has changed vastly, and the fact that there is much more recognition of autistic adults' needs at a government level, even if not at every level of society, is kind of one of the things which I think is the biggest change, is the bigger thing that I think we've I hope helped to achieve over the last 10 years. But specifically, 2009, we saw the Autism Act that led to that was the first disability specific piece of legislation in the UK. The things that it said were quite kind of technical. It basically said that the government had to produce an autism strategy. It said that the government had to produce something called statutory guidance, which is sort of legally binding guidance for local authorities and health authorities, that says they have to do specific
A duty
things.
of care, right?
And it says they have to keep, and it means they have to keep the whole thing under review. But what that has essentially meant is over the last 10 years, the government has set out to local authorities and to the health service things that have to be in place to improve services that are available for autistic people. Now, we know it's not had the impact that it needs to have, or enough impact. But for example, every local area pretty much now has got a way that autistic adults that don't have a diagnosis and want one can get a diagnosis. Some of those waiting times are probably too long. Some of the experience and the post support might not be as good as it is. But compared to 10 years ago, that is a
Yeah,
fundamentally massive change and difference.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I think one of the things you could just listen to you talk about kind of the government and where things are. I mean, we've still got a huge way to go with other areas of like unemployment for autistic people. So in January, almost a year ago to the day, I briefed the European Parliament in France about the needs of autistic people in working environments. There was somebody there from the National Autistic Society actually who was sitting in on that briefing, but I can't remember the gentleman's name now. And one of the things I said to them was that a friend of mine who's on the spectrum, she's about 25, 26, and she applied for 5 jobs in the West Midlands. She got, she got accepted for all those 5 jobs. But when she started working there and it's disclosed that her disability, the work then magically dried up and she was released from that position. So that was just one story of like somebody being turned down for 5 jobs, which they're completely eligible for, and they can do the job. That's fine, but they were let go because of their condition. Now, I think there's a few things. There's no protection from them on a government level. There's no protection legally, and then the other thing is that the education part of it for actual employers not having education in autism because there's just so much work that needs to be done. I mean, goodness me, we're trying our best, but I think it's so important that we get it at a government level because then that then has some kind of standard. And I think there was something I saw the National Autistic Society doing like a training on females on the autism spectrum, like how to understand female autism spectrum conditions.
Mm.
And I was like, I can't even believe this is actually a thing, and it definitely needs to be there, but it kind of just, rattles my brain thinking, goodness me, how on earth is this even a thing? And I have a playlist on my channel right now talking about girls on the spectrum. We interview different kinds of females on the, who've been through the mill. And I'm thinking, goodness me, like, it shouldn't even be a thing. It should just be that, like, why do we have to even do this? But then again, it is what it is, and we're trying our best. And I think that's why the work you guys do is so important. Yeah,
Yeah.
before we kind of sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say that it is the case that you keep having to have the same conversations really, and that is like you say, campaigning is difficult. It can take time, and it does consist of saying the same things all over again and again, until people have heard, and until that message gets through.
Yeah, I think that is it. It's like consistency is king with what we're doing, I guess. And so, in terms of the projects that the National Autistic Society are currently working on, do you want to talk a little bit about what projects you're doing now and what the future kind of holds for NAS?
Yeah, sure. So, the mission stays the same. We're here to create a society that works for autistic people, and of course, during lockdown, the pandemic, that's been something quite different. So we've done a lot of sort of different sorts of policy and campaigns work. About making sure, for example, that the government rules that come out or reflect the needs of autistic people. So, exemptions around daily exercise when there were limits on that, for example. We made sure we secured an exemption for autistic people there.
Yeah,
The face mask, which I know is a complex issue, but just making sure that the government understands that there are some autistic people who won't be able to wear a face mask, and that needs to be reflected in the government rules around face mask wearing. All of that stuff, we've got a coronavirus hub on our website, which is still updated with all of the latest rules and guidance on there, and some handy resources if people feel they want to use those on our website. So we're still going to be doing that. Coronavirus is still with us. We know that's a big need still for people to understand what the latest rules that affect them are. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the autism strategy, the government's autism strategy, that each nation has one. So we're working in not just in England, but in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales to try and influence the government around their separate autism strategies. In England, we're expecting the government to put something out in the next few months. That's something we've been quietly working behind the scenes to influence, and more publicly with our left-stranded and not enough campaigns over the last few years. We're going to be working on that, making sure that's as good as it can be, and then crucially trying to make sure the things that it says should happen at a local level do happen as well. So trying to arm our volunteers and our supporters with the tools and resources to help them make stuff happen in their local area. Because of course we can't be
Everywhere.
everywhere,
No.
sadly.
No.
And then we know that support that people have needed during the pandemic, a lot of face-to-face support has been disrupted. A lot of our 117 volunteer-led branches have been doing stuff online. Some of that's been really small things, just doing a bit of support and keeping in touch via Facebook. Some of it's been, full on Zoom, social groups, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We know that's not for everybody. We know that some people have a preference for face to face, and we're going to be looking to get back to face as soon as the rules allow us. But in the meantime, we're going to be, helping our volunteers to do what the amazing work that they do in communities and reach people online, and just try and make sure people have got a bit of help and peer support during lockdown, because we know how hard it is for people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like there's so much struggle going on right now with the coronavirus and stuff, and it's like it's just madness, isn't it? But I think like everybody's
Yeah,
trying their best and everyone's doing their thing, and I think without that we'd be in an even worse situation. So I think I thank everybody for doing their bit, and I think that the branches do such great work. I did a talk for the Wrexham branch. I did their
yeah,
winter ball, and
they're
that was kind
amazing.
of cool. And they do so much stuff, I had the people from the Wrexham Football Club on here a couple of weeks ago talking about the amazing thing, and that's just incredible. Like what they're doing there, their whole
Yeah,
system there is unreal. And I'm glad that the new owners are throwing some money at them because they've just been bought by some
absolutely.
celebrities, so they're going to throw some money at that, and I think it's going to be great. So I'm going to go down, and once we're allowed to move outside of our local areas, I'm going to go down there and have a. They're not far away from me, but it's just that it's more than my radius is allowed. But yeah, I'm going to film some
Sure.
more
Yeah,
about the actual process because
that's great.
I think it's more what they're doing is kind of standard. It should be followed on. I think it's great. But yeah, the
Mhm.
branches doing great work, and now's just being super awesome. So I hope that people kind of got some kind of view of what you guys do here. If anybody has any questions, what I'll do is I'll leave links for all of your kind of websites and social media links down below.
Great.
You're pretty decent at responding. I mean, you guys always respond to me, so. Yeah, I think if anybody wants to kind of reach out to you, I guess I'll leave all the information, and especially the COVID hub as well. I'll leave that down there, the link for that, because I think that's going to be very, very useful for people who are watching this who are kind of just pulling their hair out thinking, oh my goodness, what are we supposed to be doing? So anything else you'd like to talk about before we kind of call it a day, Tom?
Just want to thank everyone for their support. But we are a charity. It has been a difficult time. Lots of fundraising events and things have been cancelled because of the
Mm.
pandemic. So anyone who feels they're able to support us financially, they can find out how to do that on our website. But just getting behind our campaigns, things like that, that is fantastic as well. We need people that do that and help us make the difference we all want to make.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I'll definitely be doing some more campaigning this year for you guys
Well,
in terms of
thank,
fundraising.
thanks,
And
Dan.
yeah, definitely 100%. I always do. So yeah, awesome. Okay, thanks,
Amazing.
Tom, for coming on. It's been awesome.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Thanks for having me on.